Checkdown. Caught you, Kendra. Yeah, what's up? Hey, I hit the wrong button right before you got here as a laughing thing, and didn't go great. Anyway, it's the FCS Checkdown. Nathan McCreary, Brandon Joseph, and Coach Ron Jackson, and special guest Kendra Sheehan join us tonight. Yeah, Kendra. We've been waiting for this opportunity to have you aboard. First of all, how the heck are you? And thank you so much for taking the time to be a part of the show tonight.
Hey, thank you so much for having me. I'm always excited to get the note that you guys want to have me on the show. And, it's been good. Had a nice summer. Just came back from Alaska with my family. We were celebrating my dad's 60th birthday. So we went on a cruise. And now getting back and getting ready for football season.
Oh, that's cool. Alaska. Had you ever been there before?
No. And we had great weather. It didn't rain. And everywhere we went to 4 different stops. All the locals had said that, it usually rains at least once a day. And so we didn't have any rain. So that was really nice. And it was moderate temperature. I mean, I was in long sleeves, so it wasn't necessarily the summer vacation, but it was cool. Saw a bear.
Did you really? Like a grizzly bear?
Yeah, it was a little bit far away, so I think it was a brown bear. I actually did go on a bear tour where it was a 2.5-hour tour where we were supposed to try and see bears. Did not see a bear on that tour, which was a bummer. Went to a different town, and there was a bear just walking along the river.
Very cool. Well, so happy to have you aboard. We got Brandon Joseph and Ron Jackson joining us as well. We're fired up because this is our UAC episode, which is formerly the A-Sun, which is formerly the AQ7, which is where Brandon and I originally started this podcast years and years and years ago, with Ted Gumbart joining us every so often and talking A-Sun football. So we're excited. But Brandon, let's get to you. How did you go to Alaska recently, or any fun trips? No. See any bears?
No, I've been to the Alaska of the state of Georgia. I would say Athens.
I didn't realize.
There. Yeah,
didn't realize.
But that's about it. Yeah, that's kind of where my life has led me. Didn't see any bears. A couple of bulldogs. But that's
honestly the furthest north I've ever been is when we were in Montana State. I was Bozeman. I've never been that far out there. Coach, you ever been out to that part of the country?
Not to Alaska. Absolutely not. No.
I think that's a definitive no. All right, well, let's jump into the show. We are so excited to talk about UAC. What's ahead? We're going to go around the FCS and talk about some stories that are kind of popping up and look at the top 25s that have been released over the last couple of weeks. That was teased last week by Coach Jackson. We're going to do our UAC deep dive. We're going to talk about some coaches that are on the hot seat. We're going to stick with the UAC and talk about some of those seats that might be getting uncomfortable for coaches if they don't have a good season, a good start to the season. And then we have our FCS big question. Kendra, you are welcome to join, to stay as long as you want. We'd love to have your input. We usually go about an hour, maybe a little over, but depends on how things go. So if you got to pop off, you just pop off, and we'll connect as this football season goes. If you want to stay, you're more than welcome to stay and get cozy and stuff. Sound good?
Awesome. Yes.
All right. So see if I can do this guy. Just a little camp news coming around. We had an interesting story out of Eastern Illinois. The Prairie State Pigskin is reporting that Chris Wilkerson there at Eastern Illinois is changing his fall camp to protect his players from injuries because of injury plague last year. 3 straight practice days and then a recovery day. The goal is to keep these teams healthier. Brandon, I think things like this are obviously athlete first, the human being first rather, and then the athleticism and the athletics and stuff. But this can backfire, right? This is your time to really get the endurance of these football players ready for a full season.
Yeah, it was Notre Dame during COVID that they came out and said, "Oh, we're not tackling during this session to make sure kids stay safe," and then it showed up in their first game of the season. Yeah. When you don't do things like that, especially early on in camp, there is that knock-on effect. Listen, you do whatever you have to feel, because if you ain't got healthy players, you don't have a team. But there is going to be a direct correlation. There's a reason why these coaches go full bore. A lot of coaches go to excess, I think, but to go 3 on, 1 off, I don't know if that keeps his guys healthy and they're able to do the right things in those 3 days of practice, I think that's more important. How are you doing those 3 days? Are 3 days in pads, or are you in shells doing walkthroughs and things like that? Not tackling, not hitting, and things like that. I think that's more important than how you structure it, more so what you do to make up your time. But listen, if you are taking things away and not doing certain things, it will show up in the first part of the season.
Kendra, I'm going to jump down to you. You've been around some of these programs during media days. Have you heard any of these coaches talking about limiting practices or protecting players or injuries, or making these camps a little bit, I don't want to say softer, but changing the approach to them?
No, I mean, I haven't heard of it going that far as just 3 straight days of recovery day. I mean, all coaches talk about trying to limit injuries. You know, you have teams that, you know, with a quarterback that was injured last year where they held him out of, you know, spring. They've been really limiting their reps to try and make sure they're ready. But those are, you know, your elite number 1 quarterback that has been, you know, your guy for the year, and you need him to stay healthy. So to do it for a whole team, it's an interesting approach. I mean, if your team is riddled with injuries last year and you don't know what to do, and maybe this is the way to go, you know, it'll kind of be a try it and see approach.
Yeah, Coach, by the way, the chat is off. Steve McKenzie, Brandon Haddock, always in the chat early. Kobe Kluth, also Hotchkiss. And I was going to mention R.R. Gale's also in the chat. I was going to mention Junction Boys, Coach Jackson. This is kind of the stuff we grew up on. 2-a-days, sometimes 3-a-days, up early, late, sweating, taking salt tablets and wearing those suits. What do you think about this stuff?
Well, you know what? When I played, we did go through 3-a-days, and we would go from 2 o'clock to 9 o'clock fairly regularly. We had, you can get injured walking across the parking lot. I'll say this: if you hadn't seen a modern day college practice, those guys, I mean, when we had walkthroughs, they were literal walkthroughs. I hadn't seen a walkthrough in college in years. When we went in shoulder pads and helmets, that was supposed to be an easy day, but nowadays, them guys get after it in shoulder pads. They get after it in shells. And, honestly, I think it's just kind of a Jedi mind trick. If you tell guys in college, you got to find different ways to motivate these kids. So if you tell them, listen, we're taking off to stay out of injuries, maybe that plants a little seed in their mind, and they practice a little bit better where they're not getting injured as much. But I've seen them go through light practices, and you'll have 4 or 5 of them go down, and then I've seen them practice like hell in a handbasket, and you'll have and everybody comes out unscathed. So whatever floats your boat, find your lost remote. Get ready for week 1.
And that's only the current concern, right? You've got to be ready for week 1, but you also got to be ready for week 10, 11, and 12 as the season continues. So interesting. It's not a critique there of Eastern Illinois. Obviously, they had some programs. There are probably one of the coaches on the hot seat up there because you want to have a good program. And if you're having injuries, obviously.
You want those guys to go back where they couldn't have water breaks. You want those guys to go out there, sun up to sundown. Just say it.
I mean, I do like a little toughness in football. You know what I'm saying? I think it's got soft a little bit, but
hey, Brandon, we didn't have water at our practices. Our coach was stupid enough to just set a big thing of ice up on the table, so you got to watch your water melt away. And then, linemen got theirs first. Hell, by the time you got there, it's all dirty, nasty, bloody. So, whatever.
Yeah. I'll tell you what.
Retention pond. That's about all you got.
And practice both ways uphill. Hey, let's move on and talk about the top 25s. They've been coming out over the last couple of weeks. The Opta Stats Perform poll, FCS Central, Football Central, Hero Sports, Zach McKinnell, and the other guy there.
Tim Rosen.
No, not Tim Rosen. The guy for Hero Sports.
Oh, Sam Hurt.
Thank you, Sam Herder. They all came out with their top 25s, and we're going to take a look at some of these and kind of compare what it looks like and the changes that you're seeing in this top 25, or the differences rather you're seeing in this top 25. And the first one we're going to take a look at is the Hero Sports. Sam Herder. How dare I mess that up? Montana State, Montana, no surprise there. South Dakota State, UC UC Davis. Illinois State, I still have so many questions about UC Davis and Illinois State with all their losses. Tarleton, North Dakota, Lehigh, Rhode Island, Tennessee Tech, Youngstown State, South Dakota, Villanova, Austin Peay, SFA, Southern Illinois, Yale, Abilene Christian, Northern Arizona, Lamar, Idaho State, Sela, Alabama State, Mercer, and UT Martin for the Hero Sports Top 25. And for the FCS Football Central, this one was the one that was pretty interesting, Coach Jackson referred to. Montana State, South Dakota State, Montana, Tarleton, UC Davis, now Tennessee Tech up in there, Coach. This is what you mentioned last week, and Zach McKinnell bringing this one to you. Rhode Island there at number 7. Youngstown State, North Dakota, South Dakota, Abilene Christian, Illinois State dropping all the way to number 12, SFA, Villanova, Southern Illinois up there. A lot of confidence in that quarterback coming back, DJ Williams. Lehigh, Austin Peay, Yale, Sela, Northern Arizona, Harvard, South Carolina State making an appearance, Lamar, Furman, and Prairie View in the top 25. And then we'll get one more, which is the Opta Stats Perform FCS poll. Montana State, Montana. Not a whole lot of change here in this one. I don't think there's a lot of surprise. Northern Arizona there at number 25. And the analysis for these top 25s is you see a quick snapshot here with Montana State being number 1. Kendra, no doubt across the country, this Montana State team is really capturing the attention after their national championship run, how young they are, and they're sitting atop. That is, it's the obvious answer, it seems like. Any reason to buff that?
I don't think so. I mean, I think when you go in and you win the championship game, of course, Illinois State put up a fantastic battle. It wasn't necessarily a blowout at the championships level, but, you're returning a lot of guys. They have that experience in the playoffs. It goes a long way. They've got depth. And so, yeah, I do think it's just the obvious Montana State. They lost a ton of guys, and, there was some, coaching change there that I could see where they could fall. But with where they're sitting now, I think it makes sense. And now, they're the one that's going to be hunted by everyone else. So how do they handle that pressure knowing that they're the top target?
Yeah. Brandon, obviously, Montana State, no question. You see Illinois State, I have a lot of question there. You have tons of turnover. Tommy Rittenhouse is gone. You lost some of your pieces. You actually had some pieces transfer out of Illinois State, which is a little unusual, but you've got them number 4 in Opta Stats Perform. You got them number 5 by Sam Herder, and Zach McKinnell has them at number 12. What's your thoughts on this one?
Well, you take a look at what Zach is doing in his poll, and it's kind of the way that we've talked about, and I agree with you. Taking a look at what they lost, and you realize they're not going to be the same team. Now, your evaluation of South Dakota State is they have a lot of guys coming back, but those guys, for the most part, especially in the middle to end part of the season, weren't very good. So it's how you evaluate those guys. Everybody's told me South Dakota State has a lot of guys coming back. Okay, those guys weren't very good last year. So if you're telling me they're getting better, and I don't want to hear the excuse that, a lot of those guys were put into a position where they didn't necessarily have to see the field or they weren't supposed to see the field. No, they had snaps and they just didn't get the job done once the quarterback went down. They looked at the quarterback and said, save us, do it all. And once he wasn't there, nobody else could help this team win football games. So that's the evaluation there. Talent-wise, yeah, is South Dakota State maybe the second best team? I don't know. They're definitely top 4 in there, but I can't go and say based on what I've seen that those guys are going to progress and instantly make them the second best team. Montana State's number 1 clear across the board. Illinois State, if you evaluate what they lost, I lean more towards Zach's poll and probably in around 10 to 15 right there. South Dakota State, again, you can convince me that these guys are going to be critical parts in there. I think they're probably closer to the 4 rank there. But again, we don't know outside of number 1 what these guys are. Is Montana with, first-year head coach, first-time head coach, a lot of talent around there. Can they figure it all out for the Grizz? So I think it's very fluid outside that number 1 spot.
Coach Jackson, I saved the Tennessee Tech for you. You see 14-10 for Opta and Sam Herder, number 6 for McKinnell. It's great to have expectation on your team, but now you got to perform.
Yeah, I think what that does for me anyway is you really don't know at the FCS level. It's hard, like Brandon says. It's hard to judge a team, especially if you got 30, 40 different FBS transfers, that looks good and sounds good on paper, but quite honestly, if they didn't play at the FBS team that they left, they probably not playing at the FCS team that they're coming to. So, Tennessee Tech anywhere from 6 to about 15 tells me that, we've looked at, what they got coming in and they should be good, but we're not sure. And again, Tennessee Tech's going from playing in the OVC to playing in the SoCon League, which is a little bit different. I think the question marks, when I look at the top 25, the question marks are Tennessee Tech, Austin Peay, and quite honestly, Abilene Christian. Abilene Christian, I do believe, is kind of getting the shaft on the rankings. They've got a running back, the little Broom kid. He's from around here and played at Boston College. Who's really going to buffer up their running backs. And I know we'll talk about them later. But yeah, Tennessee Tech's a big mystery for me. I don't put them at 6, but I don't, it wouldn't surprise me if they end up at 4, 5, 6 from what they got on their roster.
Other things of note is Villanova, a little bit of disagreement there. They're moving to a new conference, what that looks like. I think they probably should really bowl their way through the conference. I don't know how it sharpens them up for the playoffs. It's yet to be seen. And then, of course, Lehigh, Sam Herder has them higher than most at number 8, number 16 for McKinnell, number 11 for OptaStats Perform. I'm probably with Zach McKinnell on this one down towards show me something Lehigh in the competition. But Kendra, UAC showing strength in the top 25 with Tarleton State, Austin Peay, and Abilene Christian getting votes there in that top half. You've been around the UAC for a long time. I think we've been talking about UAC and the potential strength, and they lose SFA, and I think it notched them down a little bit. But what are your thoughts on UAC and just the overall strength of the programs?
Yeah, year after year, the UAC continues to get better and better just in the short time that they've been a conference. You look at Tarleton State, essentially all they have done is win since becoming eligible for the playoffs. But this Tarleton State team this year is going to look so different from the previous years. And I understand because Coach Witten, he's the winningest coach in program history. He just finds a way to bring guys together and to win ball games. But it is really interesting to see them so high just because you're not going to have, Victor Gabalis is gone. You're going to have a new quarterback. They brought in 63 new guys this year. That was a program record. So there's so many question marks there. There's no doubt that Coach Witten is going to coach them up. But that's a lot of new guys from a program that hasn't had a lot of turnover. The last couple of years, one of the things that they've has been their staple is that they're a veteran team, that they have guys who have returned, that know the system, that want to play there, old guys. And this year, it's just a brand new group of guys. So how quickly can they put the pieces together? It's just interesting when you look at how many new people that they are so high up after, obviously a stellar year last year, but you lost so many of those guys that made an impact.
Yeah. Huge. And we're going to talk more about the UAC, obviously, as we jump into the deep dive. But let's go ahead and finish out our Around the FCS, this was the time of year where teams could opt in or opt out of the House settlement. Additional teams have opted into the House settlement. And for what that means, we'll put a little slide up here, and hopefully you can read it a little better.
Probably not.
Shut up. Brandon, by the way, I mentioned Brandon. I said, hey, if you need to go, Brandon, go ahead and go. I hear your kids in the background. He's like, that's our cat. So,
my cat. I don't have a cat.
It's not. It's Kendra's cat.
I
cat.
have a kitten that could be meowing in the background.
It's Kendra's cat. Yeah.
Oh,
My kid was singing Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star earlier.
I thought I heard a kitten singing Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star. But anyway, I thought it was his kids.
I closed the door. She'd be all over the keyboard.
Perfect. You listen, I told Brandon if he had to go tend to his kids, he can do that. Kendra, if you got to go tend to your cat, all's fair in love and war. All right, the House settlement, FCS school opting out. The opt-in schools operate under a new compensation and roster model that has opportunities to and constraints. Obviously, there's no more walk-ons and no more red shirts. They have a cap of, was it 106, I think, players or something like that. The teams that opt out of the house settlement, it just maintains the same. They can still do NIL deals, but schools cannot do revenue sharing school to athlete. And so that kind of puts a little bit of a constraint on the monies. And the teams you see here through the Ivy League, NEC, OVC, Patriot League, Pioneer League, and Southland Conference, Houston Christian, not going to be participating in this the house settlement. So just to you guys, what does this mean for those teams that are saying, hey, we are not going to opt into this, Brandon. We're going to opt out. We're going to say, it seems like it's just such a different level of football almost.
Yeah, I mean, kids can still get NIL deals. So if you have a big money booster or donor, you can still, grease some pockets that way. But to do the revenue sharing deal, sometimes, it's very little when you get to a lot of these schools. I think, in the Pioneer League, how much revenue is truly being shared with the kids there.
Right.
But, I think Stetson's the only Pioneer League school that isn't in the settlement. So you're going to quickly learn that being on the outside of this revenue sharing thing will prevent potential future opportunities. But I don't know how much it's hurting, a lot of these schools in terms of the day-to-day, the ones that are getting in now. The halves were immediately the jumping in there. They were able to hop in, and it doesn't really affect the status quo. It wasn't like the situation where you had a lot of like upper tier programs not opting in and some of the middle to lower tier programs getting a jump on them. It just, if you don't have it, when the chips all fall, whenever that may happen, you just know that you may not have a seat at the table.
Coach Jackson, your thoughts on these teams that are deciding to opt out and do the revenue sharing a little differently, not school to athlete, but more private equity type stuff?
I really don't see the benefit of opting out. I mean, if you opt in, you still don't have to do everything that they ask you to do. Opting out is the only thing that kind of limits you. So, I don't really have an opinion one way or the other, but mainly because I don't know what the advantage of opting out is.
Yeah, I don't know, Kendra. Any thoughts on the house settlement? These teams that are opting out of the settlement and traditional roster limits and things like that.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I just think the next few years in college football, college athletics are just so crazy. I mean, it's hard, even when I was working at the conference office, to have, our compliance guy explain to us, all the things that are happening and what that really means and how does it affect everyone. And, I don't necessarily see a benefit to opting out, but also at the same time, I mean, it's such a new thing that's happening that, maybe they're wary, they're hesitant, they're waiting, feeling it out, and then realizing, okay, well, if I'm on the outside looking in, then, okay, it's time to, switch that. So I think there's just so many question marks going on that it's going to be interesting to see how it all plays out in the next 5 years.
Yeah, definitely. We're going to actually, the big question that we have at the end is going to have to do with that whole house settlement and what it may look like. Okay, let's go ahead and get into our deep dive for the UAC. And we're going to start right here with West Florida Argonauts. And they entered 2026 FCS season as the newest member of the UAC after transitioning from NCAA Division II. They were in that Gulf South Conference under fourth-year head coach Caleb Nobles, 25-9 overall at West Florida. The Argonauts finished 10-2 in 2025 as the Gulf South champion, co-champion rather, and advanced to the Division II playoffs. Nobles is in his fourth season as head coach. Lots of questions around this. They've got some returners, but how does the division look? The Division II FCS level look compared to what the Division II. You got a chance to be at Media Day, and I assume that they had a representative there for West Florida, and you got to learn a little bit more about this program.
Yeah, they had Jake Robinette and Elijah Webb. So Robinette's the tight end, and then Webb was representing the defense. And, this is really interesting because obviously they were picked last in the coaches' preseason poll. That was just kind of a given. But these are guys who are coming there. They want to play Division I football, and they're excited for the opportunity. They're, of course, using that as locker room material for this year, saying, all right, we're not eligible, so let's just go out there and make a name for themselves. What they were able to do at the Division II level and how quickly this program was able to have success. I mean, this program started in 2016. Head coach Caleb Nobles was the first ever quarterback for the program. I mean, that's a unique story in itself. I mean, he threw for 3,000 yards that season. And so now he's back trying to guide them through this transition period. And it should be interesting. A lot of these guys, had success early on. I mean, they won a Division II national championship in 2019. They were a playoff team, but how does it translate to Division I? I think is going to be an interesting story. Week 1, how do they handle that? They're going to be playing some UAC games, interestingly enough, in their schedule earlier than some other programs. So they're going to get battle tested early and what the UAC and the strength of this league has become early. And so I think they're going to shock some people. I think they're going to turn some heads. But, now they have some time to be able to, okay, we're not eligible for a few years. Let's build this program up. They're doing all the right things with the university. They're building a brand new stadium. I mean, this is a program that knows they want to win. They know how to do it, and they're putting all the pieces in place to do that.
They lost their starting quarterback from a season ago, this Marcus Stokes. He was the Harlan Hill Trophy finalist there in the Division II. He transfers to Memphis, so he goes to an FBS school, Brandon. We kind of talked a little bit about West Florida. We've actually been talking about them for several years, that they would fit into the FCS as you started seeing teams jump out. Now they're here. They bring in a quarterback, Bubba Thompson from South Alabama. Looks like he's going to be battling for that QB1 position. They've got some skill players. They've got some experience that is returning. Your thoughts here on West Florida?
Well, you get Southern Illinois to start your season at home. You get Tarleton State at home. You get Austin Peay at home. So that's the big draw for them. If they want to set a home field advantage and to make noise, you'll at least be able, talent-wise, you probably won't win that game. Those games. There is a jump. There is I would say a difference in moving up the levels. I think every team that moves up learns that. You don't come out of the gate and expect to win. I think St. Thomas was an anomaly, and they weren't eligible to make the playoffs when they had that magical, run when they jumped up to the Pioneer League. I think that's an easier transition from D3 to the Pioneer League than it is from D2 over to the FCS for West Florida. So I think they're going to take some lumps, but you have some pretty big teams coming to your field. It's a chance to steal a game, win a game at home, influence that way. You get some fun games at home to start the program. And Nathan, we were around a program that started. It's important to get those good games at home to get the fan base, invigorated about being there and seeing those quality teams that you're going to see for years to come and building those rivalries. So I think for them, that's what it's all about there. Get some talent in there, contend. You may not win those games, but if you're forcing teams to play 4 quarters of football, those are the wins there as you start to build that program and make a name for yourself. And you can steal a couple of games, go for it. If you can have an impact on the conference, go for it in year 1. But this is a long play for them.
Coach Jackson, you kind of talked about West Florida early on about what they may look like and fit from a Division II to Division I transfer. And I'm looking at some of their transfers. You're talking about guys from Mississippi State, Southern Miss, let's see, Mercer, Western Carolina. They're getting. Would you surprised at the draw that West Florida's getting as a new program?
Oh, absolutely not. Where they're located, I mean, here's the thing.
Pensacola.
I wouldn't judge them too much on. Yeah, I wouldn't judge them too much on this particular year. They're going to take some lumps, but they're not the finished product that they're going to be. I think at some point in time they'll probably have the resources and the ability probably to move up pretty quickly in the conference. Now, from a schedule standpoint, I'd have started off with Edwin Waters and some other directional teams. They have jumped off into
Virginia Lynchburg.
So, or maybe one of the Wesleyan schools or something like that. Because honestly, the depth on their roster is what's going to hurt. After them first 4 games, if they've still got enough to compete, God bless them. But it's going to be tough sledding for them right now. But they're not going to be down for long. I would advise teams to get them while you can.
Predicted strength of schedule is around 32nd in the FCS. So good road tests. Welcome to the FCS Florida Argonauts. Brand new mascot. Hadn't seen that before. Had to look it up and figured out what it is. But it's an Argonauts. And so welcome aboard to West Florida. As we move on to our next team.
For land.
Huh?
It's like an astronaut for land.
Obviously, Brandon. I know that now. Thank you. Wikipedia did it. North Alabama is up next. The Lions enter 2026 coming off that 2-10 overall season, 1-7 in the UAC in that 2025 fourth year under Brent Dearman. I am absolutely shocked that he still has a job there, but you know what? They're building a new stadium. Obviously, going through a coaching change is difficult. Hopefully, he can turn this thing around, but he's got a debut of the Bubba Wallace Field at Bank Independent Stadium. But he's got significant roster change, significant staff turnover. I'm wondering what this may look like. Dearman in his fourth year, his offensive coordinator in his first season, previously at Bowling Green, is going to be Travis Partridge. Clint Bowman, the assistant head coach and defensive coordinator, also in his first season. Previously the DC at Oklahoma State as a interim. This is going to be interesting. UNA returns a modest number of significant contributors, roughly 5 on offense, 6 on defense. Overall, huge question marks around this program. And Kendra, I'll go right back to you. You got a chance to be around this. I'm sure they're excited about their stadium, but you know, there's football to be played, and there hasn't been a lot of good football in around North Alabama and Florence, Alabama for a long time. And we have some Florida, North Alabama fans, and I know they're starving to see this team do well, as we are. We want them to do well. We want Brent Dearman to be a success and that stadium be a success. What are your feelings around this program?
Yeah, I mean, there's always, I feel like, a lot of question marks when you look at North Alabama, at least for the past couple of years. The stadium is certainly going to be a game changer for them just in terms of recruiting and that aspect. And, you know, you're not returning a lot of guys, and that's really been a thing where they've had a ton of roster turnover the last couple of years. And then the coaches, they've had a ton of new coaches each and every year. Last year, I think they brought in 5 to 7 new coaches. Again, this year, you're bringing in a new offensive and defensive coordinators. There's just a lot of changes going on. And when you look at last year, their record didn't reflect necessarily some of their games. I mean, you look at the game against Illinois State, they took them to double overtime, the national champion runner-up, and they were just, 2 plays, 1 play away from taking that game. So there were a lot of games that were close, but they just aren't at that hump where they're finishing games and they're getting the win. And so it's tough to build off of, what you saw last year. Okay, we were almost there. We saw glimpses of success, but we weren't there. And then you start this year, well, it's a whole new roster. And so that's really hard to build off of. They do get Destin Wade back, who was their starting quarterback about midway through last year. He basically said at one point during the season last year, hey, coach, put me in. I want to be the guy. And coach put him in. They ended up getting a win, and he ended up starting for the remainder of the season. And so, I mean, he did get injured as well, but he's back healthy this year. He was at media day. He's fired up. They bring back, Jaheim Ingram, who's on their defensive line. He's been there for all 4 years. I mean, he's a Florence, Alabama native. A lot of pride in his, hometown, trying to get them to where they want to be. But there's just so many question marks. I mean, so many new players, new coaches. Can they get something going? You just don't know. Coach Dearman is going to coach him tough. He's going to coach him hard. He's a great coach, and he's a great person to be around. But you just don't know with this Lions program year after year, and you're hoping for the best, but you just don't know. There's so many question marks.
By the way, the teams that champion all year long, we almost beat the runner-up in the. That means you had a bad season. It means you had a bad season. Oh, by the way, it's Bobby Wallace, not Bubba Wallace Field.
When you said that, I was like, oh, I just knew it was Independent Bank Stadium.
Yeah, Bobby Wallace. Thank you,
Bubba
Brandon
Wallace
Haddock.
is the most North Alabama name it could have been.
Exactly. That's where my mind went. I was like, heck yeah. Oh, my God. Well, Destin Wade is projected to be your starter. 51% completion percentage last year, over 1,000 yards, 10 touchdowns, only 4 interceptions in limited time. They do have wide receiver KJ Fields returning with 31 receptions and a pair of touchdowns. Defensively, Ingram, the defensive tackle that Kendra mentioned, 26 tackles, 3 tackles for loss, 3 sacks. There's just not a whole lot of production that's coming back, Brandon. And this team, this North Alabama team, this is a tough conference, and they need to start off really, really well. and their strength of schedule is around 28th. They got Arkansas to start off. Sanford to start off at a neutral site for the Partners Bowl, and then Arkansas and Sela. That's a tough start. Sanford is going to be a team that's going to want to get on the right side of the win column as well.
Yeah, I think, and for Brent Dearman, I mean, once upon a time there was a traditional path, the coaching, and when things weren't going well. You had a couple of bad years, then you fired your coordinators, you brought in new ones, and then everybody started looking at the coach after you blamed the coordinators. And that's kind of the track that North Alabama is on. They gave Brent Dearman a chance to bring in new coordinators to right the ship. Now all eyes are on him to win the football game. Kendra kind of hit the nail on the head with this team. They were in a lot of games, but they just couldn't finish them. And that's the biggest question mark there. What's missing there? It's not a talent thing because they can hang with them. It's not necessarily a coach's thing because they come in there and they're doing the right things. It is a lack of resolve in the team, and that's really something that's really tough to teach in a team. Now, good thing is you bring in a bunch of new players, you get a new offensive coordinator. A lot of the transfers are on the offensive side of the ball. You can kind of change that dynamic, at least offensively. But, all eyes are going to be on Coach Dearman from the start there, because the failures of this team and then bringing in the new coordinators, it starts in that head coach's office. And I think he'd be the first to raise his hand with that. I mean, you do have some winnable games early in the year. You're not going to beat Arkansas, but you can go out there. You could potentially beat Sanford. You could potentially beat Sela. You're probably going to you should beat Alcorn State. But once you get into conference play, I mean, it's going to be the tough run of show for the Lions. So I don't think, the record necessarily could do much to in terms of wins and losses in conference to change, but you could win a few more of your non-con games, and maybe that gives Brent Dearman a clear-cut vision that he's able to give to the university and all involved to keep leading this program.
Brandon Haddock's in the chat. He's a fan of UNA. Is it still the grand opening on September 19th as far as versus Alcorn State, Brandon? If you can
that's what I see in my thing.
That's what I see as well. They also have homecoming against Austin Peay. Probably not a great decision when you had Western Illinois just a couple weeks earlier. But Coach Jackson, North Alabama, I know you've been there. I know that we're kind of trying to put something together. We can all go see the new stadium. And Kendra, you're invited too. We'll come down there. We'll do the show from there. But Florence, Alabama, nice recruiting. They just haven't been successful. The question marks of why haven't been answered. What are your thoughts?
Well, I think it's a powder keg. They're a dangerous program. One, they've got a fan base that's tremendous, and the fan base is hungry too. So that doesn't bode well when you've got a lot of questions on your team, because honestly, if things go bad in the first few games, it could be pretty tough sledding from then on out. I like Coach Dearman. Every team I've ever seen him coach, they play hard. Now, obviously, the results aren't there, but they've got a new stadium. They've got tremendous fan support. There's a lot of hunger for wins right there. But I've looked at that schedule, every way I can, upside down. I've used fingers and toes, and I can only come up with 5 wins. I think that Eastern Kentucky North Alabama game is going to be pivotal for both teams this year.
Yeah, that's a good call. That's a really good call. All right, moving on from North Alabama, we're going to take a look at West Georgia, the Wolves. Obviously, new program to the UAC. They went 8-3 last year, 5-3 in the UAC in 2025. They ranked as high as number 22 in the FCS coaches poll. The program under first-year head coach Steve Englehart, who comes over from Presbyterian. Joel Taylor jumps to Mercer. So some things are changing, and they have some very, very tough losses for their program, including their quarterback, Davin Widener, who's gone to Louisville. Latrell Murrell transfers to Kennesaw State, both FBS programs, as well as their defensive back, his name, Coach Jackson, McGlure. I can't pronounce it.
Keandre McGlory.
Yeah, McGlory, yeah. Transferred to Arkansas in the SEC. So they're in full rebuild mode, but they've got a coach that's a lot of people are looking forward to seeing what Steve Englehart does with a scholarship-type program. He obviously had a lot of success there at Presbyterian. And West Georgia, kind of very similar to North Alabama, the recruiting pipeline there and what you can bring in is significant. And let me tell you, we went to I went to a game last year and absolutely loved what they were doing. The PA didn't work, but everything else was great as far as the program. Kendra, West Georgia Wolves. Joel Taylor really put them on the map. He really brought a lot of energy. Now Stevie Englehart's going to step in. What are you thinking about this program?
First, I just wanted to say with Maglor, I mean, his story is pretty incredible now that he's at Arkansas, because he actually was cut from West Georgia's program. He wasn't really locked in, had some discipline issues, and Coach Taylor was like, "You're done." And at the end of the summer, he invited him back and said, "You're welcome to join if you want and you want to put in the work." And Chiari, he told me like that changed everything for him. He became a different person, a different player, and really had a ton of personal growth and became such an elite player for them. And I feel like that's just a great story about college football is you come in sometimes, you're out of high school and maybe you're the hot shot in high school and you go to college and, it's fun and there's all these, bright, shiny lights and you're not necessarily always focused on football. And Coach Taylor gave him an opportunity to come back and reevaluate some of the decisions that he had made and, was able to bring out the best in him. And of course, now he's on to Arkansas. And of course, Joel Taylor has moved on. But what he did with that program is pretty spectacular. And so Steve Englehart has some tough shoes to fill, but it'll be interesting to see where West Georgia ends up, because you looked at last year and they were really making some noise. They had 8 wins. They were probably a playoff team, or would have been a playoff team had they been eligible.
Yeah.
And now you have a lot of new faces coming in. I don't doubt that Steve Englehart is not going to get this team into a good position, but you're dealing with a lot of new players. He did bring both his offensive coordinator and his defensive coordinator over from Presbyterian, including the quarterback. I think Colin Hurst is a guy who's going to do a lot of good things in the UAC, and we have some good quarterbacks in the league. And so I'm excited for what he's going to bring. And you look at this program and it's going to be interesting with, the guys that they return, the guys that they lost. I mean, a lot of new pieces have to blend together pretty quickly. And this is another program that starts conference play, I believe, pretty early if I'm looking at when they start. There are a couple teams. It's interesting when you look at the UAC schedule. Some teams don't start conference play until mid-October and some are, second week of September.
Yeah, absolutely. And then, Brandon, they're bringing a ton of talent over from Presbyterian. So gotta wonder how that. I mean, I know that the continuity is important, but the talent level is also a little bit different at that. And those conferences are non-scholarship, but they brought them over now, and here they are. So, your thoughts?
Yeah, I'll be interested to see how that transition works for a lot of these guys. I get the whole concept of, hey, they were really good at playing in the Pioneer League. It will translate. I mean, the language, the playbook, and all that. But we also have to remember they're moving to a far tougher conference as well. I mean, they lost 2 games in conference last year, and then a lot of those guys are moving over. They lost a lot of pieces too when Joel Taylor went to Mercer. So I think that we have to pump the brakes a little bit, in my opinion, on just going out there and saying, they can go and do what they did last year. I mean, they have a really tough schedule to start the year.
Yeah.
Chattanooga on the road at Kennesaw State, which isn't really a road game. Who knows? They may bring more people there than Kennesaw State walking across campus to get to that game. At Arkansas State, that should be a tough game for them as well. So we're looking at potentially, and then they go on the road to ETSU. That could be a 1-3 start for them. How do they rebound after that? I'll be interested to see how they go there. I think find their groove over the course of the year. They could potentially lose 4 conference games. But with that said, that doesn't mean they're a worse team. There'll be a different team. The record would be worse. But if he can show that they're actively building something and they can get the foundational pieces in, I think the true test for Coach Englehart will be, how does he recruit the state of Georgia? It's a very different beast, and we've talked about it many a times on this show. You will go and look at a high school team's 3rd or 4th corner, and that kid will go to the SEC. You'll spend all this time investing into potentially getting this kid where in most places he came from, he went to college over in Indiana. If you're looking at the 3rd or 4th corner, you got the guy. He's coming to your program at the FCS level. That's not going to be the case for a lot of these kids, that he will have his path cross across the board on all 22. So I think how he gets into the recruiting game, he could get a lot of talent in that program, but the bases are already there. It's unfortunate they lost Joel Taylor, but they replaced him with a very good X's and O's guy. If he can get recruiting in order, I think this year will be a full pass for him as long as he's doing the right things to get this program in position to be the contender they know they can be in Carrollton.
Coach Jackson, Colin Hurst does transfer with the head coach Englehart. He was the 2025 Pioneer Football League Offensive Player of the Year, and they also bring in Luke Marble, who played at South Dakota State. So interesting dynamic there with those two quarterbacks. But it just seems like this is a retooling year for West Georgia, and you got to take your lumps.
Yeah, I think that hiring Coach Englehart's more of a stabilizing force there at West Georgia. And I love Coach Taylor, but that was always a stepping stone job for him. And I think Coach Englehart's more of a longer-term solution at West Georgia. Now, I do believe they're probably going to take a step back. The players that fit Coach Englehart's system are not the same that would fit Coach Taylor's system. So it's going to take them it's going to take them a year. And I do think they take a little step back this year, but I do believe that they've hired the best coach for their particular program for the long haul. And again, even if they take a step back this year, you might want to get them this year, because moving forward, once he gets his players and his system in place, West Georgia, with the money that they got in Carrollton, Georgia, they're going to be good for the UAC, and they're going to be good FCS program for a long time.
Yeah, it's ranked number 26 in strength of schedule, with that kicking off on August 27th. Is that a Thursday night? It might be a Friday night game against
Thursday.
Yeah, Chattanooga, the Thursday night game. So that's going to be your week 0 games. So it's right around the corner. We're getting ready for it. We can feel it. Let's move on to Central Arkansas Bears. Team outlook for the Bears. This is a team that golly, you feel like they've just been on the cusp, and then you look and they said, well, they went 3-9 last year, 2-6 in the UAC under Nathan Brown, a former quarterback there at Central Arkansas. He knows the culture for Central Arkansas. What isn't working? We'll talk a little bit about that later. The Bears finished near the bottom of the conference standings and were projected to be a mid-tier team this year. Nathan Brown in his 9th season, Jake Walker is an offensive coordinator, as well as Chad Williams. They're going to return a moderate number of contributors, 7 on offense, 9 on defense, including a couple wide receiver talents. A new quarterback will be under center. They also have some defense on all 3 levels, returning the tackles, linebacker, and safety. The key losses, their running backs, wide receiver Malachi Henry, also first-team All-UAC. Safety Dylan Williamson. They are not returning any quarterback production whatsoever. They do bring in Donovan Amolo out of Central Missouri and Walker White out of Baylor to compete for that QB1 position. So another very, very interesting season coming up for Nathan Brown. That seat's probably getting a little warm, Kendra. You wonder how the Central Arkansas Bears in a tough conference like UAC can turn it around.
Yeah, this is probably a tough year for Central Arkansas. I mean, you don't know. There's so many question marks around this team. This is a team that brought in 45 new guys, no quarterback that played a single snap for the program last year. You really look back to when they had Will McElvain and they had David Walker and they had a solid QB. And then last year, I mean, it really was rotating. They had one QB who left mid-season, and they just really struggled to find any sort of continuity under center, and it really hurt them. And so this year, you got to be able to find your guy early and get some consistency for offense, because this is a team certainly that has potential, but I mean, again, this is one of the other ones that it's just a huge question mark with Central Arkansas. They got a tough schedule. I like that they're playing Florida State because it's my alma mater. I also like that Coach Norvell played with Coach Brown. So that's a cool dynamic there. Coach Norvell actually had some cornrows back in the day when he played. His picture is up there in their facilities because he donates a lot to their nutrition area that they have there. But I mean, there's so many question marks. Coach Brown is a quality coach. He puts a lot into his players. That's evident with how much he checks in on David Walker, who should be a big part of the Bucs this year. I know he was injured last year, but they just somehow can't seem to figure it out, and it's just an inconsistency issue. And this year, Coach Brown said they have a hungry, motivated group this year. He said one thing that he hasn't had to harp on is these guys are coming in, they're working hard, they have big expectations. He said June and July were going to be critical for this team. They really needed to get after it in the weight room and really needed to put in the work in order to see the results. So we'll see how good that their summer camp was in terms of, their production week 1 and 2, but they definitely need to find their guy under center. I think it's been tough. Will McElvain was so good for the program. He played for so long. And after that, it was, just a revolving door of who can get this offense going.
Did Nathan Brown tip who might be the starting quarterback? I think a lot of people feel like it's going to be Walker White out of Baylor.
He did not, but that is, I would probably lean that way unless something happened that he lost the job or some other guy came in and absolutely blew everybody out of the water, because that's a great pickup. And I'm glad that you mentioned that for Central Arkansas. He wanted to go back and play near his hometown, and actually Coach Brown had recruited him out of high school. And so he felt like this is a guy that believed in me from the very beginning, wanted to go back to his hometown, and just felt like Central Arkansas obviously was the perfect fit. So I think he's going to bring a lot of excitement to the program. That is a good point. And so if he can get going, then this offense really can rally around him.
Yeah, we want them to do well, Brandon. Central Arkansas, it just seems like they've been on the cusp and their time almost has passed, and now they're having to rebuild, and it's not easy.
Yeah, Central Arkansas and Florida State can have a lot more in common other than sharing a field on September 26th in terms of head coaching. To find I went to Mike Martin baseball camp. I have a sister that graduated from Florida State. I got a younger sister that plays club soccer there and is about to graduate in May. Ties to the university, loves that university. Florida State ain't a good one. And Central Arkansas is very similar in that boat. Just because of the Nathan Brown situation, I want to make another correlation. It's very Mike Gundy-esque to me. You have a legend in the program who had 1 year, 2019, of great success for Nathan Brown. But you take a look at the body, and it has bought him a lot more time than I think most people would have in that situation of poor results after that. But it's really tough. Chipper Jones once said on why he would never manage the Atlanta Braves, it's great to hire the legend, but it's really tough to fire him. And he doesn't want to put the Braves in that situation that eventually they would have to fire him.
Yeah.
And this is the situation I think Central Arkansas is in. There's a lot of great sentiment towards Nathan Brown, and there should be. He's a good football coach. It is just not working at his alma mater, but there's a lot of people there that I think are having a tough time raising their hand going, hey, we need to figure out what the situation is, because they do have talent in there and it just doesn't perform. And then there's always high turnover in terms of people in the program, quarterbacks, receivers, linemen. So I think that's a big problem. This is going to be a tough season, in my opinion, for Central Arkansas. I can potentially see them winning in terms of conference game, maybe 3, maybe 4 games in terms of conference games. Now, the out of conference will probably make them look good. They should lose to UT Martin. They should lose to Florida State. They probably will lose the SEMO. But at some point, 5-6 wins can't be good enough for them.
Yeah. Coach Jackson, I'm looking at a transfer list, and I see a lot of Arkansas Tech, Louisiana Tech, Fayetteville State, St. Francis. There's some FBS names in there, but retooling a program, you need a little bit more. And now you've got the 22nd most difficult schedule in the FCS, as Brandon alluded to. Your thoughts here on Central Arkansas and Nathan Brown?
Well, I like Coach Brown. He's another one that every team that I've ever seen him put together, they play hard. He loves his kids. He loves his team. He loves Central Arkansas. Now, where I've thought that they've had troubles in the past is a little top-heavy at whatever position. So when they had David Walker, they had unquestionably the best defensive player in the UAC. Not much else, but they had that. When they had Shunderick Powell and the other big running back that they had, you got the best running backs in the UAC. However, together probably too much. At one time, they had 2 or 3 of the best wide receivers. They had Tyler Hudson. Anyway, they had 2 or 3 of the best receivers on the planet, but not much on defense, not much on the offensive line during them times. So he's got to put it all together. Now, the good thing about him is the food around Central Arkansas is off the chain. Dude, they got some of the best food you gonna have. And the other thing is, while they stinking it up on the football field, ain't gonna be about 300 or 400 people in the stadium, so ain't nobody gonna really see them suck.
That stadium, that field too.
Dude, it's awful, and there's a track around it where you can't hardly get there. We went up there a couple of years ago, got into a fight with their DJ, and one of our coaches is yanking his mess out. Dude, we had a great time.
Yeah, I love it.
Yeah, I mean, they're the poster child for inconsistency. So the UAC would be better. They're better when they're better, but I look for a tough time for Central Arkansas too. I'm not so sure that they'll improve on their win total from last year.
It's a tough schedule, and the foundation of the FCS has been shaking for the last 5 years, and it's settled a little bit. But these teams that have jumped conferences back and forth, I mean, maybe that's where Nathan Brown's getting a little bit of an opportunity to let things settle. But we wish them all the best. We want Central Arkansas to do well as we turn our focus to EKU. Eastern Kentucky Colonels, they enter 2026 coming off a 5-7 overall season, 3-5 in the UAC. 7th year under head coach Walt Wells. The Colonels were picked 4th in UAC preseason coaches poll and faced significant roster turnover. Andy Rickman is the offensive coordinator, his 7th season. Jake Johnson, defensive coordinator, also in his 7th season. EKU returns a strong group on offense with 9 contributors, but only 3 on defense. Brandon Latham is going to come back, preseason all UAC, 154 carries, 667 rushing yards last year, 3 touchdowns. And Miles Burkett was the primary quarterback in 2025, 1,473 passing yards, 8 touchdowns, 9 interceptions, 317 rushing yards, and 4 touchdowns, though his status has been a little bit clouded by some potential injuries here. EKU, lots of question marks here. Another team that you feel like they're just a storied program that's better. The FCS is better when they are good, Kendra. And under Walt Wells, it seems like, again, those seats are getting a little bit warm. He's got to retool this season.
He does. And it's always great to catch up with Coach Wells at Media Day. So that was fun. And Eastern Kentucky, hey, I mean, they brought their kicker, Buzz Flabiano, A-plus name. Love the name. But yeah, there's a ton of question marks around this program too. I mean, we're seeing that so much at this level where there's just roster turnover left and right. And so these guys are pretty much having to rebuild year after year. It is interesting. Yes, Miles Burkett returns, but there are question marks around the injury. We talked to Coach Wells at Media Day about the quarterback battle, and it's up for grabs right now. And so thank you to the comment. He's out for the year. The Achilles, is that true or not? I don't know.
Well, I'm not going to say it in case it isn't.
We don't speculate here.
That's right, yeah. Blake Kendall from James Madison and John Hunt from Coastal Carolina are battling, as they mentioned there, to the 2 G5 quarterbacks. So they'd have some talent there. And EKU always brings in the talent, Kendra.
They do. I mean, you look at Coach Wells, and he has the ability to coach these programs. A big thing is bringing back that Maroon Doom and their defense. A big thing they talked about in the offseason, the summer, is the toughness and the attention to details. It's the little things. Yes, Coach Wells did get an extension, so he will be around the program for a bit. But yeah, there is a lot of new faces here, and one of the things that Coach Wells had also talked about is teaching the guys to be unselfish. You can't have that selfish play, and I think they struggled with that a lot last year, and that was something that was just happening inside the locker room. And this year, it's you got to be unselfish. What do you need to do for the team? And I think if they can eliminate some of those issues where they're just putting their best foot forward for the team, we're going to see a lot of success. You have Caden Smith, of course, the linebacker. I mean, he's the lone UAC rep named to the Buck Buchanan watch list, so he's going to be dynamic on the field. He's going to help out that defense. So it'll be interesting to see where this offense could go. I like Brady Hensley coming back. I think they've got some solid running backs. So can they put the pieces together and, be that, Roy Kidd Stadium has historically been a tough place to play. They went on a 10-plus game winning streak dating back to the previous couple of seasons. So that's been their sweet spot. They need to defend their home field, and we'll see what happens. Another one with a lot of question marks, but another team to be really, really excited about.
Yeah, Brandon, 0 returning defensive tackles and edge for EKU. They're going to have to rebuild over there. And obviously, it's a great part of the country. Again, a storied program. They're retooling. What are your thoughts on EKU?
Yeah, but I trust them on the defensive line, especially their assistant defensive line coach.
one of the best
Ryan Jackson, coach.
Right.
Shout out Ryan Jackson.
Yeah, their defensive coordinator, actually, Jake Johnson's a really good defensive coordinator. If you haven't,
loved him in New Girl.
If you haven't seen a photo of Jake Johnson, he looks like Jeff Lebby of Mississippi State, with the folded up red Solo cup in the back pocket and the lip full of dip, getting ready to hawk one out at any given time. He's a true defensive line coach and defensive coordinator. That's what you love to see out there. But I think for them, they're probably the 4th best team. And this is just how it plays out. They always kind of equal out to where we kind of think that they will. I don't necessarily think they could jump up and get into the top 3. They have the potential for really good quarterback play. And I think it's something that we've mentioned over the course of the years is, you take a look at when it comes down to quarterback, can they get you a drive? They haven't always had that. And I think that's been the big problem there is they haven't had that quarterback you can look back with 4 minutes to go in a game and go, hey, give us a 2.5-minute drive that gets us a touchdown to win this football game. I don't necessarily think that's been there. Could one of these G5 guys be that? Maybe, potentially for those guys. But I think defensively, turnover is big. But I'm okay with it on the defensive line, especially at the edge, because at the end of the day, it is very simple. And you could coach those guys up. See ball, get ball. See quarterback, get quarterback. See runner, stop runner. Push other guy back. It really boils down to very simple things, especially on the defensive line. It's just how do you coach those guys up from year to year? It's not necessarily, something that you have to worry about scheme-wise with those guys if they're out of place. So I think the potential is there for them defensively to be just fine. The question for me always remains the quarterback room.
Yeah. Coach Jackson, obviously you're close to the program as your son is on the staff there, and any inside tidbits you can give us would be great, but I don't put you in a bad position. But your thoughts here.
Well, you know what? I'll say this. Eastern Kentucky's a proud program, and I can confirm that Miles Burkett is out for the season. And the only way I can confirm that, I've heard Coach Wells say that in a couple of interviews himself.
We don't watch interviews.
But again, proud program. I think he get his winning record's probably taken a little bit of a hit because he normally plays 2 FBS teams every season. At Eastern, it's basically national championship or bust, and that's really the way they look at it. So he don't really care about their record. He's sharpening iron, trying to get into the playoffs. Now I do agree with Brandon. I believe that they're probably the 3rd, 4th, 5th pick, and I think they're picked about where they deserve to be. It is going to be a little bit of a quarterback battle. It looks to me that they brought in offensive linemen, they brought in defensive linemen. The good thing is there's a lot of continuity on that coaching staff, so they should be able to get the kids on the same page, pretty quickly. One of the things that I think is a little, and again, I don't believe I'm giving away the playbook or the offensive philosophy or anything like that, but they've actually got 2 kids at running back, and one's first team preseason All UAC, and the backup is second team preseason all UAC. And I don't know that I've ever seen that where your backup is still predicted as one of the best in the conference. So that tells me they've got a decent running game, and that'll help with some of the uncertainty at quarterback. And actually it'll help me too, because it'll make him damn games go a little bit quicker. And because I do expect them to play pretty good defense, and I expect them to run the ball and put their quarterback in a position where he just makes plays when he can make plays.
Good. And as much as they lost on defense, they did bring in a lot of transfers and some good-looking transfers as well. So, again, we wish Walt Wells all the best in EKU and Ryan Jackson as well. We want to see that defense getting some slobber knocking tackles and all that good stuff. All right. Up next, we've got Austin P. Governors, 7-4 last year, 7-5 last year, 4-4 in the UAC, and they're under Jeff Ferris. They had a FBS win over Middle Tennessee, their first since 1987 last year. A perfect 6-0 home record there at Forterra Stadium, first time since 1949, and a near miss of the playoffs when they had a tough loss there late in the season. Jeff Ferris in his third season, and Coach Jackson talks a lot of stuff about Jeff Ferris and his program. Quinn Billerman is their offensive coordinator in his third season. Greg Jones, the defensive coordinator and linebackers coach in his second season. By the way, Gavin Spurrier, grandson of Steve Spurrier, is the offensive passing game coordinator and quarterbacks coach. New hire right there. So I didn't know that Steve Spurrier's grandson was in the business, but there he goes. They return a high volume of significant contributors, 9 on offense, 9 or 10 on defense, but none bigger, Kendra, than Chris Parsons there at quarterback. Your thoughts on the Govs?
This is a team that really excites me. I think this is a team that can win the UAC this year. I think, they return one of the most veteran cores in our league right now. They return the most guys. They have Chris Parson, which anytime you get Chris Parson back, I think you have a chance. What he was able to do last year was insane. He's that true dual threat quarterback. He was able to score 15 touchdowns on the ground. I mean, if there's an opportunity where he needs to go out there and put his body on the line and win a game, he's the guy that's going to do it. I watched him leap over players multiple times. I got to see Austin P in person, I think three or four times last year, and then the last one at Austin P. And so this is a team that I'm really excited about. You look at the experience they return, especially with Chris Parson. I mean, this is a team that really can go all the way. And this was a team that was also one of those first 4 left out of the FCS playoffs. That hurt. That's the main reason why Coach Chris Parson wanted to return. And Coach Ferris said it was Christmas morning when he got the call that Parson was going to be back on the roster this year. He came back for one reason only, and that was to take this team all the way. You look at this program and the way that Jeff Ferris has truly made it evolve over the course of his time. I mean, he inherited a roster that was just hit with the transfer portal, didn't have a whole lot of guys. Then he was able to really build his own roster and had his own flair to it. And just to see how far they've come in such a short time. I mean, these guys truly love playing for Coach Ferris. I was in their locker room. I interviewed the guys the day before the game. I mean, the way that brotherhood has just a really solid connection, I mean, it shows. And when you have that and you have some of the star power that this team has and the returning guys, I think Austin P is going to be one that's going to give Tarleton State, that's going to give Abilene Christian a run for that UAC title.
Yeah, Brandon, we talked to Scotty Walden before Ferris came in, and he talked about the money that they're spending on this program, and maybe Ferris that's getting the dividends of that there in Clarksville. But they do have those returning pieces. You've kind of got expectation on you if you're Governors. Now you got to respond, because Tarleton and Abilene Christian, we'll talk about just ahead, are above you in the preseason poll. You got to catch them if you're the Govs.
But those two schools have to come to Clarksville, and I think that's the big thing for the Governors this year. They get both their 2 biggest games at home. And watch out. They will go over to Nashville. They will play Vanderbilt. They will probably lose that football game. And I'm not going to sit here and go, pitch a flag and say, watch out for the upset. Over the course of 4 quarters, Vanderbilt will still be better than Austin P. But they will have a freshman quarterback, a true freshman, and Jared Curtis making his first ever collegiate start. I get it. Jared Curtis is supposed to be a very big prospect. I've seen a lot of tape on him. Okay, he could evolve in that, but he will have a welcome to college football moment. And this is not a game that you necessarily want to start against. It's not like you're playing, Northwestern Community College, State University of,
You said Argonauts.
Yeah. It's just one of those things where you have the opportunity to make a pretty highly touted quarterback look very bad, at least to start a football game. I think that could go wonders for them. Again, I don't think they win the game, but I think they learn a lot about themselves. They learn how good they are. And they can look in the locker room and go, hey, we can beat anybody. As I mentioned, 2 biggest games at home. I think this schedule is lining up for them to, they may not be better than the 2 teams ahead of them, but the fact that they got to come home, got to go into their home, and it just looks like for Austin Peay, they will get at least one of them and finish no worse, in my opinion, than second in the conference.
Coach Jackson, they've added some offensive linemen to this program through the transfer portal. Joshua Miller out of Syracuse, Jeff Burton out of Georgia State, and a couple others that are some really good guys. It looks like in the trenches they're taking it seriously to protect Chris Parsons and really amp up that offense. But it may be the defense that they need to improve on a little bit. But a 6-0 record protecting your home turf, man, that's impressive.
Yeah, they got to improve a little bit on defense, and they got to get a little bit of a running game going too. And they had a kid last year, and I think he's back. There was a transfer from an FBS school that did pretty good, but kind of faded down the stretch. Listen, Jeff Ferris does a great job, and Austin Peay, quite honestly, is kind of becoming the cradle of coaches. They went from Will Healy to Scotty Walden. Now you got another Jeff Ferris guy there who's they're spending a lot of money on the program. Clarksville is not your granddaddy's Clarksville anymore. Now they got a little growing up to do. I wish they changed that chant. Every time I sit in that stadium and they start chanting "Let's go P," I think they're talking to me. And
that prostate is swelling up.
Right, dude. I got 45 seconds once that happens. So, but look. They play with an edge. They're one of the few UAC teams, and Brandon, I get what you're saying about they got a lot of their good games at home, but in all sincerity, their home state, Austin Peay's a little more dangerous on the road than they are at home. They don't get the same home field advantage that they should, and really Clarksville has no reason for not coming out there. It's a new stadium. It's got all the now on the visitor side, it's a little lame, but on the home side, listen, there's no reason not to come out there and support that team and the way they are. And I'm kind of like Brandon. I expect them to finish second, and I think they'll beat either Tarleton or Abilene Christian before it's all said and done.
Yeah, they're one of those week 0 teams as well. Open up there at Gardner-Webb, 33rd ranked schedule. The strength of schedule, easy for me to say, in the country. So Austin Peay goes. Going to be watching that team. It should be fun to watch what the Governors do and what Ferris has for Chris Parsons in the 2026 season as we turn our focus now to Tarleton State Texans. A couple years ago, no one knew anything about Tarleton State. We just heard that they wanted to join the FBS and then use it as a stepping stone into the FBS. Well, I think they've done a great job with it so far. Tarleton State Texans enter 2026, ranked number 5 in the stats poll, a co-favorite with Abilene Christian in the UAC. They come off that historic 2025 campaign of 12-2, 7-1 in the conference, a shared conference title, and a run to the FCS quarterfinals, the first FCS team since 1993 to reach that stage in one of its first 2 full years of postseason eligibility. The offense ranked number 1 nationally, scoring 42.4 points per game. Todd Whitten, as Kendra mentioned, is returning 17th season. Chris Ross is offensive coordinator. It's his first season, previously offensive coordinator there at SFA. And Tyrone Nix is the assistant head coach, defensive coordinator in his 5th season as well. Co-defensive coordinator is Scott Carey. They're returning 6 on offense, 5 on defense. So this is going to be a different looking team, Kendra. Returning Tylen Hines, their running back there, Marquez Wills at wide receiver, Stephen Wood at the linebacker position, but some new faces here for Tarleton State, but there's a lot of expectation on this program. What's your thoughts?
Yeah, and I said 64 at the beginning. 63. Okay, 63 new players. Big difference there, but obviously the largest signing class in Tarleton State's history. But then you look at who they're signing. So the roster is going to look completely different. 54 of them are transfers. Just 9 are coming out of high school. 17 are joining from the FBS level. So they're bringing guys with a lot of experience. I think that's what Coach Whitten had wanted it as a big focus in terms of the recruiting. I think it's really interesting. You have Chris Ross. That's the first time that they've had new offensive coordinator in the last 10 years with Coach Witten. So a little bit different style that Coach Witten, he wants to still run a similar style, but with a few different pieces. And I think Coach Ross is going to come in there and do that for the offense that struggled in the playoffs when, you thought, hey, okay, there's a direct line to the championship game and they struggled down the stretch. Okay, let's bring in a new offensive coordinator, maybe add some different dynamic to that. But this is a team, a lot of question marks. I'm excited to see what they look like, but you just don't know. Stephenville has become a great place for, athletes to come, what they're doing in terms of building around the athletics department. President Dr. Hurley has done a fantastic job just pouring into athletics, and you're seeing that with the way that they're having success, especially so early after, officially becoming Division I NCAA postseason eligible. But I am excited to see Charlton State. I'm not sure what it's going to look like. We saw Danny Joyner, who was the tight end who joined us, and then Omar Emmons from the defensive side. Both of these guys are going to play a big role this season, offensively and defensively. But there's just so many question marks. This is a team that hasn't had to do this with their roster turnover in a couple of years. So I'm interested to see the first 3 weeks in terms of how they're going to gel together and what this team really is going to look like.
Yeah, watch BJ Fleming, a wide receiver that came over from North Dakota, had 48 catches, over 800 yards, and 7 touchdowns in 2025, joins Tarleton, Brandon. But again, you've got the expectation. Tarleton State going to compete again in the UAC, a tough conference. And lots of new players. How do you get them to gel quickly?
Yeah, well, how do you get them to gel quickly? You go out there and you just throw them to the fire. And you can start instituting that in practice. You kind of put guys in positions where they have to lead, and you put guys in situations where they have to, example. So a coach will come out there and say, hey, ball on your 20, 2-minute drill. And you'll practice that. That's a fairly normal thing to do in practice, but you'll do that early when the guys don't really know each other and go, okay, you got to have tempo. You got to figure out the rhythm, get the cadence going and things like that. They have a quarterback coming in. Braden Locke, I believe, will end up being the starter for the Texans. He's a guy who had some run at Wisconsin. Luke Fickle's second year there. Replaced Tanner Mordecai, who was a very dynamic quarterback there at Wisconsin. The problem was Braden Locke had to slide into an air raid type offense that wasn't really set up for the air raid, so he wasn't necessarily put in the best situation. But he did show, hey, flashes. He can work. Then ends up transferring to Arizona. Did not play much there at Arizona, but he's a kid that I think with this type of offense we're Tarleton State in, what they like to do with the running game and the tempo and deception, he could fit in there. He could be a guy that you put him under center and he could, make the right decision. I think that's going to be the big thing. Coming from an air raid, it's going to be a lot of action quickly. You have to decipher, make the decision with the throw. Now, here it's going to be a little bit different, but they're still going to rely on his knowledge and him to put it all together for 4 quarters. But they're going to have the running game be the lead there. But he's a kid that if you go out there and you say, hey, we need to throw the ball, he can throw the ball pretty well.
Coach Jackson, Victor Gabales is the leading all-time leading passer. He's gone. They're having to replace those key pieces on offense. As Brandon said, some pieces on defense, but it's been a big recruiting season for Todd Witten. 17 years. He's done it a long time. He's done a great job here in retooling and reloading for 2026. Your thoughts on the Texans?
Well, you know what? I'm going to give them a little bit of locker room material. They count on me every year to get them fired up to play. And and listen, I like Tarleton. I like going down there. I like the line dances. I like the food. I don't like the way they prepare. I don't like their out of conference schedule. Anybody that schedules Merrimack and Chicago State instead of Stephen F. Austin kind of looks like they're ducking Stephen F. Austin. I'd like to see them play, and I would go ahead and tell you if Tarleton plays Stephen F. Austin, they're going to get the ship high in transit beat out of them in that particular game. But listen, they got a great roster. They got great money. They got great fan support. They're going to lose 1 or 2 games just out of the heck of it. I guess my question would be, if they falter a little bit this year, say they come in third in the UAC, are they, with their strength of schedule, is the UAC a 3-bid conference at that time?
That's a great question. It's a great question. You have to figure out.
Not with them at 3.
Not with what?
Not with them at 3.
Well, you have to look at the whole. You have to look at the whole nation at that point, right? I mean, and who's getting what? Because we talked about the Big Sky last year. I mean, last week. 3, 4 teams, 5 teams. What's the MVFC? That North Dakota State spot's open. I don't know, but we should see.
Barring a win at Bowling Green, I think they're non-con, as Coach was mentioned. Merrimack, Chicago State. You'll win those games probably combined 142-3. But that's not going to help you if you don't win. If you don't finish top 2 in the conference, if you don't beat Austin P, if you don't beat Abilene Christian, that won't help you. If you're third in the conference with that in your non-con, I think the committee, who already doesn't want to do a lot of work to begin with, don't give them any ammo to do less work and do comparison. I think they would just go scratch off the list.
Yeah. All right. Final thoughts there, Coach, before we move on?
Well, I mean, like Brandon's saying, the out-of-conference schedule, I like Prairie View just as much as everybody else. It's just, I wish they I think if they played a tougher out-of-conference schedule, that allows for, a couple losses. If it was a tougher out-of-conference schedule, I think they would be the third team in if they finish third.
If the third position is open, that 53rd ranked strength of schedule could come back to haunt them, but we shall see. All right. Abilene Christian is the final team we're going to talk about here. Obviously, co-champion with Tarleton last year. Abilene Christian finished the season 9-5, 7-1 in the UAC. They had a second consecutive appearance in the FCS playoffs, went out in the second round. They were ranked in the preseason top 15 rather in the stats perform at number 15, and we're tied for the UAC preseason coaches poll. Head coach Keith Patterson in his 5th season. I can't believe it's 5 years already. I remember watching Kendra, you talking to him when he came on board, and he was just so thankful to have an opportunity. And look what he's done, 30-20. What a job Keith Patterson's done. What are you thinking about this Abilene Christian Wildcats program, Kendra?
Yeah, honestly, it's crazy. When I was doing my prep for Media Day, I was like, wow, 5 years, man, that's crazy. And it's really interesting because I look at last year, and ACU was kind of in a similar position that they are in this year, where there was a lot of question marks. They didn't know who their starting quarterback was going to be. There were a lot of players that they still needed to fill in. There were a lot of gaps in their roster, and no one, I don't think, expected them to come out and win the UAC that year. And so they were able to do that. Now this year, a similar situation. They've got to fill some gaps. They're going to have to name a new QB1. But, something about Coach Patterson, I love his mantra. He searches for guys who just want a PhD. They're poor, hungry, and determined. So it's just guys who have been overlooked, who just haven't found their right place, and they just want an opportunity to play. And they'll come to Abilene Christian, and Coach is honest with them. He said, I'm not going to be able to give you as much money as some of the other schools, but I'll give you an opportunity. And when you have guys that just want to play for that opportunity, you guys who want to come in and just give it their all every single day, and then you see that. The quarterback is going to be interesting, who they select. Coach wasn't in a hurry to name his starting quarterback. And then the defense. I mean, they lost their top 7 tacklers from last year. And it's interesting when you looked at the defense, because it really did just get better and better as the season progressed. I mean, they were playing some of their best defense at the end of conference play, and then certainly as they were moving into the playoffs. So that'll be interesting. Their offensive line is going to look really good this year, and that's a stark contrast from last year, where they pretty much had to replace their entire starting line, and so that was tough, having a new quarterback come in and having a completely new O-line. And this year, I think they're getting 4 of their 5 guys back, including the Roten twins, which is just an awesome story. I love that these two guys are there playing right next to each other in Division I college football, and so they'll have some good protection. And then you look at Graham Harrell coming back for his second year. When you look at Coach Patterson's time at ACU, he hasn't had the same offensive coordinator in back-to-back years in his entire 5 years at ACU. I mean, that's kind of crazy. And so to have this guy, who is such a legend and such great ties to the Texas region, come back for year 2, I think they're going to have a really solid offense if they can get their quarterback going. But I think this is a team that's going to be scary. They do return a lot of key pieces. They just got to fill some of those gaps, and they've done that by hitting the transfer portal pretty hard. It'll be interesting with their matchup against Texas Tech again this year. They were so close, last year, and obviously that's one that they want back.
Well, Brandon, this is a team that, last year we talk about how good UAC is. They might be one of the most difficult conferences after North Dakota State leaves. Some question marks in the NVFC. So Big Sky, number one. Who's number two? Could it be UAC? Well, your number one team in the conference, or co-champion, only put up 29 points per game, allowed 26.4 points per game. Those are the kind of statistics that, Tarleton put up 42 points. It seems like if you're Abilene, that's an area you really got to work on, is getting the ball across the end zone, putting more points on the board. And without a quarterback in question mark, and you're continuing to change over offensive coordinators, it seems like that's an uphill battle. But Keith Patterson keeps winning football games and keeps bringing great talent into his program.
Yeah, he loves to win these games dirty in whatever way. They don't have to be pretty. They don't have to be, routes, walkovers, as long as they find a way to win the game. And I think that matters to him. And looking up the latest on their quarterback battle, of somebody from, a local news station out there said that Kanan Gibson, one of the other guys that were in contention for that quarterback job, left the program as of late last week. That means Marcos Davila will probably be the starter. Kid that came out of Purdue and Nebraska. He's a Texas high school kid. Don't really know much about him. He got 2 starts there at Nebraska, but that was such a schizophrenic program with Matt Rule, and then Dylan Raiola and Davila, I guess, getting a couple starts there during his time there. It's just they don't really have an identity there. So they're going to lean on the fact that this kid was a pretty good quarterback in a very good quarterback state of Texas, and they're pairing him with a very good quarterback coach and co-offensive coordinator in Graham Harrell. Now, Kendra mentioned, the first time that Patterson has had a coordinator come back. Well, this will be the last time he has Graham Harrell here. Graham Harrell will be an FBS coordinator at the very least next year. I firmly believe he is a guy that is destined to get into the FBS ranks. He will be a name that gets a lot of calls for next season at the FBS ranks in a very offensive-minded program there as well. So I think it's going to be very interesting of what he can do, potentially, given with a quarterback that has multiple years. They found themselves, if Davila is the quarterback there, who is only a redshirt freshman. Or I guess under this year, a second year. I don't know how they're phrasing it now that red shirts are gone and things like that, the 5-5. But he has a long run left in that program. So it's going to be getting him comfortable. I know this is a win now thing, but they have a good foundation, I think, for years to come in terms of that quarterback room. They got to get it figured out fairly quickly, because I think this is the program that could very well finish third in there. And the 3 that we mentioned and we talked about earlier, I think this is the program that can give you 1 or 2 losses, and you just look at them and go, okay, I can see where they have a little bit lacking in terms of not being able to win games late, or fall behind and not be able to claw their way back, or put themselves in a position where they're trailing late in the fourth quarter.
Coach Jackson, Tucker Parks is also a quarterback, a dual threat quarterback, kind of fits what Gibson might have been there for Abilene Christian. And just to go back to what Brandon was saying, Blake Harrell may be your last year. This might be your time, if you're Keith Patterson, to really ramp it up and put Abilene Christian on the national map by a deep playoff run.
Yeah, they're a solid team, solid coaching staff, solid roster. They'll get solid quarterback play. I think they've got one of the deeper running back rooms in the UAC. I also think defensively they got 2 big juggernauts up there that play on their defensive line that look like 10, 12 pounds of stuffed in a 5-pound bag. And so they're gonna stop the run. I like their out of conference schedule. I'll say this: if they finish third in the UAC, then the UAC will get 3 teams into the playoffs. I think the same thing with Austin Peay. I'm looking forward to the Abilene Christian Stephen F. Austin game. I think it's going to be a slobber knocker game that particular weekend.
Well, he's starting off with Lamar. I mean, that's no joke. So it should be a fun start to the season.
Be the best 4-loss team.
Abilene Christian could be a 4-loss team.
They could be the best 4-loss team.
Oh yeah, I think you're right. I think you're right. But again, we're talking about UAC as a conference that's competing with MVFC for that who's second best in the FCS. Maybe Southern Conference as well, competing for that. And just a lot of question marks going around. This is why we love college football, because it's that time of season. Those question marks are about to be answered. No doubt about it. One of the things I want to talk about is Coach's Hot Seat as we go into the UAC. And we've kind of already mentioned this. Brent Dearman there at North Alabama on the hot seat, 2-10, 1-7 last year, consistently near the bottom of the conference. Nathan Brown on the hot seat-ish there at Central Arkansas, and Walt Wells there for EKU. Of course, we love Walt Wells. We love what he's done with the program. He's been on this program several times, and his heart issue, his health issue was such a scary thing to hear about. We wish him all the best, but you got to produce. And Coach Jackson, you're near and dear to the EKU program. What is the feeling around a Walt Wells, the issues around the program there? Walt Wells, I know he's a well-liked character, but you got to win on the field, right? I mean, it's not just about how nice you are.
Yeah, we kind of stuck with, everybody expects a Roy Kidd type success, and you have to kind of look at that historically, and it is what it is. They want to win, and they don't care where the wins come from. They really don't care. Coach Wells is fantastic in the community. He's fantastic with his kids. I would take him from warm down to probably lukewarm, maybe even mild, because he did get a 2-year contract extension. So I think he's at the helm through 2028. But I do believe his buyout went down a little bit too. So I kind of put him in. I put him in the lukewarm.
All right, fair enough.
And it kind of depends on what's going on here. I would probably move number 2 up to red hot, and number 1. I believe he's probably they probably red hot right there too. But back to what you asked me about Eastern Kentucky, they just want to win.
Yeah,
they don't. They just want to win, and
by the
they
way,
don't.
Coach Wells is exactly the same.
Yeah. And you wasting your time talking about how many FBS losses. Hell, they think they should have won them too.
Yeah.
And it's a good place to be. So he's got that program in a place that if he does have the kind of success that people want him to have, dude, he can be there for forever. He's that kind of polarizing figure around Richmond, Kentucky.
Kendra, it's never comfortable talking about teams and coaches that may be on the hot seat, because we're here to bring positive attention to the FCS and positive attention to these programs. But when you're not particularly picking up a lot of wins and it's a storied program like a North Alabama, it's just something that I think the fans kind of expect, and they know. This isn't like rocket science. You kind of know. But what do you think some of these programs need to do, like in North Alabama and Central Arkansas? What do you think they may need to do to kind of quell that temperature a little bit? And besides winning football games, obviously, that may be the dumb question I've ever asked, but what do you think they can do to have a more successful season, get the season off right?
First of all, have you guys have really upped your graphics game since the last time. I mean, these are awesome.
No.
I hand draw these.
A photo of Adam Jones, and it's always a black guy. Not that Adam Jones.
We had our moments, Kendra, where we had a couple of miscues, probably Brandon's fault, about the race of some of the players. Your
graphic has me looking like Grimace from McDonald's.
We've gotten better. Thank you, Kendra. Thank you for the positivity. Yes, the graphics have gotten better.
I like this one. I don't love that, unfortunately, these coaches are in the hot seat, but yeah, it's just the reality of the business. And I mean, you look at Central Arkansas, and I think there was a lot of, there was a struggle last year when, you have a quarterback that was your starting quarterback And the next thing you know, like I called the game, I was on the sidelines for the Tarleton State Central Arkansas game. And my goodness, unfortunately, the Bears got crushed during that one. And their starter then, 2 weeks later is no longer on the roster. And it was just, hey, what happened there? So I think when you have players that are just leaving mid-season, maybe it's a culture shift. You're bringing in guys, and it's obviously tough to maintain, a strong culture when you're losing so many games. But maybe it's the personnel in the locker room. Are you finding the right leaders? Are the right leaders stepping up? And I don't think Central Arkansas really had a ton of those leaders that were guiding the program in the right way. And similarly, North Alabama, I don't know if it's necessarily that as much. I mean, I think they're just, they're in those games, but they just can't seem to win. I don't know what it is. It's just something that goes on, that it's that last tackle or it's that last finish, that extra yard. Somehow they're worn down. I don't even know if you really can say that, because, they take Illinois State to double overtime, but I think it was a low blocking penalty that got them. Yeah. But somehow these teams just have to have that leader, have that guy step up. For North Alabama, I think it's got to be Destin Wade. He has to really set the tone for this team. I mean, Jaheim Ingram has obviously been another vocal leader on the defensive side. He's not, I think vocal leader is a strong word. I don't know if he's necessarily the vocal leader, but he is that leader on the defense. He's not going to be your guy who's, rah-rah screaming, but he's just going to put his head down and go to work. And so Central Arkansas, they need to find some sort of leadership, and, for North Alabama, they just got to execute.
Yeah, and Brandon, I'm glad Kendra mentioned the instability a little bit, because of FCS rosters. What you would see, was a player. You'd have 4 years, right? You'd have that first year a coach was hired, and you would kind of expect not his players. He'd start bringing them in, and then maybe some pieces. And by the third and fourth year, you expect those players to be his own, and he's gelling, and you give him that time. Well, now that's just not the case. And either you're working that transfer portal extremely effectively, or you're probably not winning football games. And so the dynamic is you have to have made those adjustments, and it's been a quick change here in the FCS, because we've seen and talked about how close the G5 is to FCS level football, and how those players are jumping up and having success at the next level.
Yeah, but also for a lot of these coaches too, you can't walk in there and go, I have this super complex system that's going to require these kids to be in my program for 3-4 years. I think that's foolish. If you're a head football coach, you are expecting that, given the landscape. I think that's why we're seeing a lot of guys. I mean, maybe to a certain extent, that's why we saw the guy with Montana tap out and said, you know what, I'm done with this head coaching thing. Let me go hang out in Illinois, get more money, get more staff around me. Again, but you don't have to be Denzel and remember the Titans and run 5 plays like Novocaine and give it time, it will work. But I think there's a happy medium in there where you have I don't want to say simplistic offense, but you have something that can be picked up in an off-season program, that can be picked up or refined in spring ball. Just so these kids aren't going into week 1 or 2 trying to figure out cadence, playbooks, and things like that. So I think for coaches, they have to make a little bit of adjustment too, given the transient nature of college football right now. For the guys that we see on screen, I mean, for Walt Wells, I think it will take something catastrophic for EKU to make a change. If you finish 3rd or 4th in the UAC, and everybody looks at them and go, okay, they're 3rd or 4th best team. Okay, that's not his fault. Mm-hmm. You may have to take a look at, okay, what can we do better as a university? Maybe that's get more money in there, to get more kids in there, or to get better quality kids in there to make the next step. But that's not a coaching thing. If you are North Alabama or Central Arkansas and you have a replication of last year, even you win, you double your win total for Brent Dearman. 4 wins, is that better? 4-8, is that much better than 2-10? I don't think so. There, I think I don't want to say it's a fait accompli, but I think barring major upsets, and you have to give them something that they can go, okay, we've really turned the corner. But even with that, whatever you do, you turn the corner. Let's say they have phenomenal quarterback play there, and they end up winning 4 or 5 games. Guess what's going to happen to the quarterback? Somebody else is going to come calling and take you away. Yeah. So it's the fundamentals have to be there. The foundation has to be there. And I think that's what's really the problem with North Alabama and Central Arkansas is that we are not seeing a good foundation for these programs. And Kendra's absolutely right. For North Alabama, I don't know how you fix it. I mean, this is a team that for whatever reason, whatever you spin a wheel and it comes up to what monumental thing is going to go wrong for them in a course of a game that's going to cost them to lose a game. They could play perfect for 3.5 quarters. I guarantee you they will still find a way to lose a game in some regards, or they find a way to let a team back into a football game or the inability to put a team away. That's not something I could fix with roster turnover because we've seen it with very different rosters in that program.
Yeah, it's certainly tough, and we wish all these coaches and teams all the best. We want to see them succeed, and I think that's. I think we've juiced that lemon. All right, all right. Here we go. Sometimes things sound better in your head than when you put them on the screen and make people talk about them. Anyway,
our Nathan Brown and your Newman's coming on the show anymore.
I know. Oh well, we'll just say Kendra's on the show, and they'll be like, "We're in." We're in. All right. So our big question this week has to do with the house settlement world. These teams that are opting out, should it force the teams that are opting out of their conference, opting out of the house settlement, out of their conferences and into a different tier to make head-to-head matchups fair? Because you're talking about different money, different rosters, different approach to athletics at that point, Kendra. And I'm just wondering, is this house settlement that big of a deal? And the teams just to of course, all the Ivy League is out. Central Connecticut State, very competitive, is out. Stonehill out. Wagner, Charleston Southern, Gardner-Webb, Bucknell, Colgate, Holy Cross, which has been very successful, Lafayette, Lehigh, top 25 team out, Presbyterian and Houston Christian. Should they be forced out of their conferences into a different tier since they're playing by different rules?
I mean, no, I don't necessarily think so.
Okay.
I mean, I think there's so much to change that I don't even really know how this is all going to play out. But I mean, I don't know if it's necessarily the same comparison, but I mean, there are schools that have way more money. They can recruit way better guys. They can pull, like, those schools are still being forced in the same conference. A Tarleton State of the UAC is still playing, some of the schools that don't have that much funding or can't pull that much and put it into their NIL fund. So that's, if you're going by that, that's not necessarily fair when you can, offer a guy this much money and the other school can't. So I don't know. I don't know.
I love it. I love it. Coach Jackson, what do you think?
I'd like to find out the teams that opted in last year and then opted out this year.
I don't think there's any. I don't think there's any that were in last year and opted out. I think the only one that was not in that opted in this year may have been. I have to look at. I think it was maybe like Northern Arizona or somebody. I was surprised to hear, but I don't think anyone that was in opted out.
Well, conversely, I'd like to know the ones, if you opted out, what made you opt in this particular time around? And I think, at some point in time, hell, you either opt in or you're opted out, and let's go forward. I hope we don't have to go through this every single year for the next 2 or 3 years. But, it's hard for me to answer the question because I really don't know what the benefit to opting out is.
I honestly, I think it takes pressure off the university to have that student to athlete revenue fund, Brandon, and correct me if I'm wrong in this, but I mean that's a huge driver of opting out, in my opinion, would be that allowing the university to be responsible for paying these athletes.
Yeah, you have to bring in extra staff. You also have to track that money, and you have to make a lot of people okay with it. I mean, we talk about it in the context of football and maybe basketball in some regards as well. But guess who's not going to be happy if you opt in and you start playing football players? The softball coach, the volleyball coach, the track and field coach. They're not going to be happy about that. The baseball coach definitely won't be happy because there won't be funds going to their program as well. And if you don't feel you can navigate that, if you don't feel you could, let's say, do right by all your athletes there, then you may opt out of being involved in it. Or if you feel like, hey, athletics is something cool to have, but not something we're willing to go all in on. I mean, the Ivy League. I mean, I don't think they need marketing from football. I think they're pretty much they got their lane set up in being in the Ivy League. I don't think sports changed much of that for them. I think to answer the question, I think, do we need to take teams out of their conference? No. But I think we can solve this, and the NCAA spends far too much time worrying about things they can get sued on and lose on, but they can look internally and fix a lot of this problem. There's an NCAA rule, I believe, dating back to the early 80s, to where it's an all or nothing rule. All your sports have to be in the same level. Before then, you could play Division I basketball and have a Division II football program. We could do that. We can go back to that, and it doesn't have to necessarily be in a rubber stamping. We can handle it on a case-by-case basis. If you're Presbyterian, if you're Stetson, if you're Drake, you don't really want to play Division I football. You're forced to be in the Pioneer League. And this is what I think a lot of, casuals don't get. The reason why they're in the Pioneer League, because they have to play Division I football, because their other sports, the men's, women's basketball, are on a Division I level. They can't do anything other than play Division I football. So it's either get rid of it or play in the Pioneer League. So I think if the NCAA modified the single requirement rule and allowed it on a case-by-case basis, we can make Division I, whether it's Power 4 and everybody else, however you want to split it, Power 4 and a select grouping of the G6 and everybody else play whatever level of Division I, and that is opt-in at varying levels that we can all figure out. We can all get on the same page, because listen, the SEC has been opting in way before people can play players. I mean, Calipari was opting in on basketball rosters way before opting in was a thing. So I think that we could get to a point where we can figure out the numbers. That's actually the easy part in all of this. But if we allow programs to go, okay, you really don't want to be here, but you want your baseball to be Division I because you have a very good baseball heritage. Your basketball, your softball is really good programs. Okay, you can play for the highest level championship. You can play Division I, but your football doesn't have to be. That would have solved the St. Thomas problem. St. Thomas could have moved up and played Division I football and kept the rest of their sports. They have a very good hockey program that I think is now rounding back into form and starting to get a little bit more competitive there at the Division I level. But, I mean, they would have benefited so much about just being allowed to pick their football team what fits their university. And listen, I get the whole mindset of why it was done back in the 70s and 80s. It made it a whole lot easier. You didn't have to worry about guys cherry. That's the reason why we have the 1-year sit out for transfers for a long time between FCS and FBS, where you had it because you just couldn't bankroll players and hide them and move them all up together as one unit. That's why we had the transitional period and all that. But this era of college athletics is different. I mean, we have teams in the same conference in Tallahassee, Florida, and Palo Alto, California. We don't need to operate in this whole thing like we're all stupid and it's 1973 and this regionality and the Rose Bowl is the most prestigious thing you can have. No, we have a playoff. We have a clear-cut national championship. We can do things more sensibly. So I think that is the more sensible way of giving teams or universities the option to go say, hey, we don't want to be up here with the big boys, but we want to still celebrate and have football.
Yeah. Absolutely. Well said, my friend. That was nice. I don't have anything to do with my question, but it's fine and it's great.
I answered your question. No,
You did. I'm just teasing. It's just another thing the NCAA has gotten wrong, in my opinion. There we go. All right, Kendra, what a joy it is to have you on the show again. Thank you so much. We went an hour and 47 minutes. I hope it's not too past your bedtime. Let's go. We're on the East Coast, so it's all night time for us.
We've had viewers. We've retained the viewers longer than we've ever had.
Yeah, we've just gained 3. I don't know how. That's just like, what are we doing? It's the East Coast, West
Well, I was
Coast
gonna say, when I did my test, I did all the lighting, and then I joined the show, and I just kind of looked like a glowing ghost. But
that was my bad. You were like, the brightness level was like jacked way up because of, I don't remember who was the guest we had. He was all dark, but you're a joy. I hope you saw some of the comments in the chat of how much you are appreciated, your mind and your insight into college football, and especially to the UAC. So thank you so much for taking the time to join us. You are absolutely always welcome on the show.
Thank you so much for having me. Always great to talk to you guys. I love the comments. I don't remember them coming up last time as we were talking. So whether that's a new addition or I just wasn't paying attention. Fantastic. I mean, you guys are just taking this to the next level.
Adam Jones would be the right race, but we can get comments on the screen.
That's right. That's right. Steve Hotchkiss is asking, what's next for you, Kendra?
What's next? Well, so this year is definitely going to look a little bit different. Obviously, my time with the UAC, the WAC, has come to a close. But, one door closes, another one opens. So I'll certainly be still around the college football scene. I'll certainly be around FCS football. I'll be at some Tarleton State games this year on the sidelines. I'll be at some Sam Houston football games on the sidelines.
Wonderful.
And then just picking up a lot of freelance for right now and kind of seeing where that takes me. So a lot of things in the pipeline that I can't really say yet because we're still working that out, but I'll be around and you'll definitely be seeing my face. So it'll be an awesome year.
Well, listen, you're such a talent, and we have no doubt that you're going to land in the place that you're supposed to land in. So that's the way it's going to go. Thank you again so much for joining us. We're going to wrap the show. Brandon, always amazing insight. Coach Jackson, you did a lot better than last week. No, I'm just kidding. I always love it. He always sends me messages, Kendra. I should have done better, and I'm sorry. He doesn't realize what a joy he is as well to have on the show. So. But for Kendra, for Ron, for Brandon, I'm Nathan McCreary. Thank you guys for tuning into the UAC Deep Dive. Hope you enjoyed. This has been the FCS Checkdown, and we will see you next week. Let's go. Come on.